Some people see the Bible simply as a collection of rules, do's, and don'ts, designed to earn God's favor. But trying to live by just following rules can trap us, enslaved by an endless list of what we must get right or be condemned. It becomes a burden we can never fully bear. In the book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul reveals a different truth. He explains that through Christ, we are called to be free from the bondage of the law and the grip of sin. Our hope isn't found in legalism or doing more. It's found exclusively in Jesus. Today, I want to remind you, we have but one hope, Jesus. He alone can set us free from the slavery of legalism and sin. He is our only hope.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Yeah? Well, we kicked off last night our Saturday night service. Some of you were here. I appreciate that. Lots of sacrifices went into making that a reality. And we had a great crowd. We had like 60 people here. Kids in the back. So off and running. Please keep praying about that. We hope to open a new opportunity for people that may not have an opportunity to worship. And so, well, today we're going to be in Galatians again. You guessed it, chapter 5. We're going to finish the fruits of the Spirit today. And so go ahead and put up on the screen that particular scripture. And I want us just to read this together. You may have it memorized. I hope you do. But so on the count of three, we're just going to start with but, okay? 1, 2, 3. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful. Has anybody was a kid and you sang that song, "The Fruit of the Spirit"? Was anybody remember that? Fruit of the Spirit. Okay. There's a couple different versions of it. You heard the one that says the fruit of the Spirit's not a watermelon. Yeah, oh yeah, I love that one. Yeah, but we're going to finish the fruit of the Spirit today, and I'm not doing this to confuse you. I'm doing it because I really think that it's just really how I want to end today. So I'm going to preach through these last three backwards. Okay, so we're going to do self-control first, and we're going to end with faithfulness. All right. So I hope that doesn't mess you up. You can talk to me about it, or I'll give you permission to email me about that one, okay? But just that one, all right? Self-control, and so Carol brought me some cookies today. So we're going to start talking about self-control. Last night, all I had was Oreos to use as an example, but Stuart brought me some cookies, and I've already started eating them. Yeah. There was one I offered Sydney one, and she saw the one with a bite out of it. She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to leave that one for you." But what is it? By the way, I mean, just for interesting, I don't know what the serving size on these are, but anybody know what the serving size on Oreos is?
The whole bag.
The whole bag. That's my kind of deal, right? That's my kind of deal. And so it's two. Who eats just two of these? Just like I. If I had, the reason I haven't eaten these yet, because I've been people talking to me and have crumbs flying out of my mouth and stuff. It's odd, right? But I eat two on the way to the kitchen to get a glass of milk to eat the rest of the sleeve, right? I don't know how many are in the sleeve, but it's several serving sizes, right? Self-control is this beautiful thing. It's a fruit of the Spirit that works in us, but we have to cultivate our lives, right, in a way that we are in tune with God's Spirit. And I take self-control. Wow. I mean, I don't have a problem steering away from the things I don't like, right? I think it's been said the common problem with humanity is taking something good and using it in excess to where it is bad, right? And, food is that way for me, but it could be lots of other destructive things. Alcoholism or the excessive use of alcohol, okay, last year claimed 178,000 deaths in America from alcohol, excessive alcohol use, okay? It's destructive, okay? Think about this next one is really crazy. 11.4 billion, okay? Wrap your mind around that for a second. 11.4 billion. This statistic this number came from, it came out of the month of January in 2024. That was the amount of visits to a popular porn site. 11 billion. Think about that. That's worldwide. That's a problem. Those 11 billion visits came from mobile devices. There was another 50 million visits that came from personal computers. Taking something like sex, which is intended to only be enjoyed, right, inside the covenant of a marriage between a husband and a wife, and moving it into a category that is something total, was never intended to be. Self-control, Paul intentionally has listed before these fruits of the Spirit the works of the flesh. These things that are constantly adversarial to our trip through the fruits of the Spirit. And so when we think about self-control and practicing it, well, it sounds okay as long as it's something that I don't like, right? Galatians 5:16 says, "So I may walk in the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." Listen to Proverbs 25:28 says, "Like a city whose walls are broken, though a person without self-control." Right? Let me give you the first 3 steps of the AA process, Alcoholics Anonymous. Listen to these first 3 steps. First, we admit that we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. That's step 1. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Right? Number 3, made a decision to turn and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. This is the beginning of admission. And if you've met anybody who is on the road to recovery from anything, admission is where it all starts. It is the power. I can't necessarily fix myself, right? And I need help. The Spirit enables us, if we will surrender to it, to come in our lives and walk us through managing our lives in a meaningful way. This is what self-control does. The second of these, right? Now I'm working through them backwards. Gentleness. Okay, you're tracking with me. Gentleness. This idea, I heard a local preacher say this several years ago. Gentleness is velvet-covered steel. Think about that. Because when I think of gentleness, I don't think of something that's strong. But Tom Ellsworth had come up with this, and he said, gentleness really is velvet-covered steel. Think about that. Jesus is the embodiment of this, is He not? He says in Matthew 5:5, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." Same word. Right? Jesus in Matthew 11 says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Right? Sounds gentle, doesn't it? "I will take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Gentleness. He's the perfect picture of this. And, I got to say that where we are at, where we have arrived in just our general culture on, talking with each other about things we disagree with, gentleness isn't one of the things that I would say that we exhibit well there, right? What's the opposite of gentleness? I would say being coarse, right? Or rude, or ready for a fight, right? Not seeking to understand. And what has happened, whether we sit on the left or on the right, we don't start with gentleness. We start with like, I'm going to see if I can be the loudest and I can win, right? That's not gentleness. It's the way we communicate the truths in which we live that really permeate the ears, the mind, and the heart. If people were to ask you, because everybody's a leader somewhere, right? If people were to come to you and says, or you were to ask people, it's like, what's one of the things that characterizes, my life? Would gentleness be one of them? I love the story that Robert Morgan records that John Wooden tells of his father. John Wooten's father had come upon him and his father had come upon. John was a young boy. They had come upon a wagon and a team of horses in which had become marred down in mud along the side of the road. And he said he remembers it so well because the guy that was driving the team of horses was red in the face and screaming, and he had a whip and he was whipping the horses. And standing there, he said he saw his dad come to the guy and he says, "Hey, can I have a try? Would you let me have a try at it?" And the guy that was driving the horses, he was just at his wit's end. He said, "Yeah, go ahead." He said, "Well, I'm going to need you to be quiet for a minute." And Wooden's dad, John's dad, walked around in front of the horses and just began to nuzzle the horses, began to pet the nose of the horse and begin to talk to the horse, both of them, and just petted their necks. And then he took the reins from the guy and he just talked gently, and lo and behold, the horses just walked that wagon right out of the mud, right? Gentleness has power. John would write later that he knew the power of gentleness and he wanted to lead like that. And he did, didn't he? His whole career. Well, these two lead us to faithfulness. And I think Paul talks about that the thing that really matters, he says, what really matters is faith exhibiting itself through love. And we have love at the beginning of the fruits of the Spirit. And I want to end with faithfulness because it is love and faithfulness really are the embodiment, and everything in between these two are really a vivid reality of who God is. And to depict this, I want to just briefly talk about Abraham. We've talked about him a lot, right? But two things are depicted about Abraham, and it's like a beat of a drum throughout Genesis. It starts in Genesis 12, where he tells Abraham, says, like, leave your family and go to the place in which I will tell you, I will show you, right? And that's the first thing I want you to just kind of think about for a second. Go. Anybody a Dr. Seuss fan? Oh, the places you'll go, right? This is like one of the number one gifts that's given to graduates, right? Let me just read a little bit of it to you. Congratulations, today's your day. You're off to great places, and far you're off and away. You have brains in your head and feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and now you know, and you are the guy who decides where to go. Sounds good, doesn't it? And you'll look up down the street and look them over with care, and about some of you will say, I don't care to go there. And when with your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're smarter to go down not so good streets. And you may not find a way, and you'll want to go down In that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. It's opener there and the wide open air. And out there, there are things that can happen, frequently do, to people as brainy, as footsie as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew. Just go right along, and you'll start to happen too. Oh, the places will go, right? Oh, the places will go. It sounds lyrical and easy, doesn't it? When we're just supposed to go. You know, think about Abraham's life for a second. Let me read you out of Romans chapter 4. Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, and so he became the father of many nations, just as it had been said to him, so shall your offspring be. Without weakening your faith, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead, since he was about 100 years old, and Sarah's womb was also dead. And yet he did not waver through unbelief regarding the promises of God, but it was strengthened by his faith and gave glory to God, being fully persuaded that God had power to do what he had promised. See, in Genesis chapter 12, we're told that God just simply tells him to leave his family and go. He said, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be blessed. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. All people on earth will be blessed through you. Wow. Starts to sound like a Dr. Seuss book a little bit. Listen, go and bless. Those two things are what faithfulness, what God expects faithfulness to look like for you and me. Now, we have this great picture of faithfulness, don't we? Because God is faithful. He goes for you and I, right? And he blesses us. Go and bless. It's like a beat of a drum that we starts in Genesis 12, says the same thing in Genesis 18, the same thing in Genesis 22, the same thing in Genesis 26, and the same thing in Genesis 28. It's like a rhythm. Go and bless. Be faithful. What's faithfulness look like for you and me? Well, let me just go over a few myths about faithfulness real quickly. Myth number one, if God calls me to do something, it will mean that I will not feel anxious about it. Wouldn't that be great if that was the case? Nowhere does God call somebody to go do something that's easy. Nowhere. I don't see it. He said, you can just go do this. It's going to be real easy. You can do it in like 15 minutes, right? Think about Moses. Moses goes to Pharaoh and lets Pharaoh know, hey, guess what? Your free labor is gone. David's told to go fight the giant. Esther's called to go end genocide. Daniel's called to go to the lion's den and pray. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, go to the fiery furnace. Noah, build the ark. And he says, Noah, I'll give you a sign. It'll be what? The rainbow. He says the same thing to Abraham. Leave your family, the culture, your language, everybody behind. Go to the place in which I promised. And then he gives him a sign, doesn't he? What was his sign? Circumcision, right? And I'm sure Abraham is like going, when he meets Noah, he goes, man, you got a way easier sign than I did, right? Yeah. And so we see this. We see this over and over. It doesn't mean that life is going to be without making a decision. And sometimes, yeah, that makes us feel some ways. Second myth about being faithful. If God is calling me to do something, He won't call me to always. The calling won't always be super clear. I will never be confused. I will never have to make a hard decision, right? I will always just know. That's not true either, is it? Right? It's amazing in Abraham's story all the what ifs that he could have asked, right? From first of all, right, leaving the place that he knew, his family, although he takes Lot with him, doesn't he? Remember, that doesn't work out real well. It's almost as if Abraham has a plan B with Lot. Well, I'll bring him along just in case things don't work out, right? Yeah? And, and later, they wait and they wait and they wait. How can he be the father of many nations? He doesn't have any kids of his own. Over 20 years, they're waiting. So they try to have a kid another way, right? Through Hagar, and there's Ishmael. There's plan C. How's that sound, right? We see Abraham over and over and over coming up with contingency plans for God. I think that's interesting because Abraham, we're told to be like Abraham in his faith. So how much faith does it take to be faithful? According to Abraham, how he lived, not very much, right? Thank goodness, right? Because Abraham, he would still hold into doubt. We can see him still holding into doubt after they have Isaac. Isaac marries Rebekah. Remember, they don't have kids for another 20 years, right? Abraham gets married again after Sarah dies. Remember that? He has 6 more kids. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. He's got lots of contingency plans. It's not until till his son has kids that he's like, okay, this might work out, right? So let me ask you just for a second, think about this. Why didn't he just come out in this whole process up front to Abraham and say, listen, it's going to take this many years for you to have kids. Don't freak out. Why didn't he do that? Because that's what those are questions. That's a legitimate question, I think. Do you know what I think the answer is? Faithfulness is a process, isn't it? You think back on your own life. You look back on your own life. And if you're honest, the decisions that you were forced to make, the waiting periods that you were forced to live, do something for you, don't they? They really do. You see, it turns out that decision making is indispensable in character formation. Are you going to choose to be faithful? You know, we want our kids to be faithful, right, when we're not around, don't we? We show them that we want this to happen by giving them opportunities to make the right decisions. They don't always get it right, do they? But you see, Abraham was changed and molded by this process. And so we see him go and bless because he's told to go and bless. The last myth is this. A life of faithfulness to God would mean that I would miss out on the freedom of getting to do what I want to do. Isn't this kind of the fear of all of us a little bit? So we talk to people, other people. Turns out this is the most miserable way to live. It's hollow. There's nothing in it. There's no transcendency in it. It's what we think we need, what we think we want, but we don't. We actually need faithfulness. Think about all the people in the Bible who, weren't faithful. I think probably Jonah would be the one that, this guy that's famous for saying no, going the opposite way, right? God eventually gets his attention, doesn't he, right? Turns him around. What is it about our lives that a lot of times we have this same syndrome, the Jonah syndrome? We can miss what we're created for. Jonah was created for Nineveh. When he got there, he still struggled. Doesn't mean you're not going to struggle. You see, today, where is God calling you to be faithful? We are the bearers of God's image. We carry personally the embodiment of the divine. Inside of God's Spirit that lives in us with these divine attributes at its core. And so, what does faithfulness look like for you? Maybe it's go and bless. Tomorrow when you go to work, you go to and bless your employer, right? Give a whole day's work, right? Be faithful. Bless your coworkers, people you work with. Bless your family, your kids. Bless your students, those that you would teach. For some of us, it may be going home and reevaluating how you've been living life in your marriage. Maybe faithfulness has not been the definition of it, and it needs to be. See, I'm going to ask Junior and the band to make their way up. It may be in finances. Go and bless. Be faithful to what you've been given. It may be something as simple as getting involved here faithfully in serving, in doing something outside of yourself, not for you, for someone else. Being faithful in serving God. Maybe the start, maybe just the work day that's coming up. Yeah, I'm going to be faithful. This idea to go and bless, it runs through Jesus' last words, doesn't it? Listen to Matthew 28. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go." Go. Make disciples of all nations. Baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very ends of the age. You talk about faithfulness. He doesn't just tell us to go and bless, but He promises to go with us in the very process that He's called us. And so many of us will go run the race, fight the fight, visit the poor, heal the sick, visit the prisoner, encourage the weary. Some of us will stand before important people to go and bless. Tell of the hope that we have a faithful God. God, that His idea was from the very beginning to redeem you and me. He tells us to go and bless because He's already went and blessed. This is the very story of Christ Himself. He left what He knew, His home in heaven, to take up residence with you and me, to bless you and me. And if you put your faith in Him, He promises that the wage that you earned from your sin, which is death, He will take care of that. And He did on the cross. And so there may be people in the room that's new. Maybe that's something you've known, but you need to reevaluate your go and your bless. Oh, the places we'll go, right? Let's stand and sing this together.